talking electrical. That's what this is all about today. The electrical system on your classic car or truck, your vintage vehicle, your antique treasure. The electrical system is something very, very important, and we want to look at that when we start talking restoration. Oftentimes when you talk restoration, individuals get overwhelmed with it all. Tires and rims and chassis and engine and transmission and of course wiring and fuel system and interior, and wow, I can't afford all of that. But what you can do, you can restore a phase of your car, and one of the most important systems within the car to restore would be that electrical system. Now there are 8 aspects or 8 components if we break it down for you to understand this electrical system. I think 4 of them are pretty obvious, because if you had a car longer than 5 or 6 years, they've probably broken down on you and you've had to make some changes there. And then the other 4 we kind of take for granted. So that first 4 we deal with low tension and high tension. So when we say high tension, we're talking about things like your distributor, cap and rotor, wires, plugs. That system is high tension. When we say low tension, we're thinking about things like the ignition switch, contact breakers, the battery itself. Those would be low tension items. And then when you start talking about the charging system, that's pretty obvious. If you've ever had a car for a while, you know you've had to replace that generator or that alternator, which is a part of that charging system, along with voltage regulators. You know, that's part of that charging system that sends power back to that battery, turns that mechanical energy into a usable electrical power. And so that's the charging system, starter system, you know, the starter solenoid. And so that's a very, very important system. But what about the other 4? These are the 4 we take for granted. The wiring itself, relays, switches, we take it for granted. You know, one of the biggest reasons you have to upgrade after 30, 40, 50 years of wiring system, let's face it, the harness itself tears down. The harness itself breaks down. The connectors break down. So we take that for granted, the wiring and relays and things of that nature. But what about the light bulbs? Light bulbs have to be replaced. You know, if you're doing American classic car work, well, we know the bulbs, 1156, 1157. If there's a mechanic or someone who does wrenching at home, when I say 1156 and 1157, everybody know what I'm saying. That's like saying hello. It's a universal word. Everybody understands it. But it's not just the bulbs. It's not just the switches of the car. What about things such as the electrical components? What about the blower motor? What about the wiper motor? Things of that nature. So all of these things, when you put them together along with your fuse system and your fuses, those break down the electrical system. If you can remember those 8 building blocks, man, you got electrical 101. $1955, you know, that started the Tri-5. One of my favorite cars is that 55 Chevy Bel Air. I mean, it was iconic. It changed the game. 5, 6, 7. Man, something about that 55, 56, 57 car. But there's something else unique about 1955. That's the year that the industry standard went from the 6 volt to the 12 volt. 12 volts began to rule the roost, if you will, and manufacturers all over the world began switching their cars to a 12 volt system. Now this was done for 2 main reasons. The first reason was manufacturers wanted more power. So they're coming out with these V8 engines with these high compressions, and what was necessary, they needed more power when it was time to turn that engine, time to start that engine. And so the 6 volt system just didn't have the capacity to turn that type of engine. And then the second one, you know how it goes. We like comfort. We like cold AC and power seats and power windows. Isn't that a great touch? Well, it puts more strain on that 6-volt system. So those are the two reasons. Changes in compression and changes in creature comforts. That's why the 12-volt system really is what became the industry standard in 1955. So now, if you have a classic car and your wiring harness is at a point where it needs replacing, do you go back with the 6-volt or do you go back with the 12-volt? You need to go back in 1955 and you need to ask yourself probably 3 basic questions. Number 1, do I have an engine pre-1955? Do I have an engine that is bone stock? Because if you got a flathead engine and it's not bone stock, it's still not going to help you. Do I have a bone stock pre-1955 manufactured engine? That's what you want to know. Do I plan to put an aftermarket 12-volt component in my car, such as radio, amplifier, speakers, things of that nature? I want an alarm. It depends on how you answer those 2 questions. Then the third question would be, what are you going to do with this car? Is it a piece of history that's going to drive the streets? Or is it a piece of history that's going to sit on the shelf? And how you answer those will give me the wisdom that I need to recommend to you the right system. I'm not saying 12-volt is better, and I'm not saying 6-volt is worse. I'm saying let's figure out what you want to do. I'm all about preservation and promoting the industry of classic cars and vintage cars and antique cars. And if we take all the 6-volt systems out, how in the world are we going to have pieces of history to remind us of what a generator looks like in all these antiquated cars? But if you want to drive this car and you want some power in your engine and you have a high compression engine, the decision is already made for you. The industry made it in 1955. You have to take your classic car, like we're doing on this 1951, we're taking it from a 6-volt, we're taking it into a 12-volt. Now the other thing about that, one of the things that the client had to have was his radio, and I don't blame him. Can you imagine having a pretty baby blue 1951 Olds? Can you imagine 4 doors, you put your family in the back, man, you're driving and you're riding, what a beautiful day. You know, windows maybe half cocked down the back road on Texas, but you ain't got no radio. That's how we got this 1951. The picture was great, except there was no radio. Whenever you want to add 12-volt accessories to your car, you're starting to make the decision for yourself. And that means that you're saying, not only do I need a new wiring harness, but I need a 12-volt system. I hope that helps you out and help answers your question.